This is NAIA Football with Dannelly and Donley. Film review of NAIA football games is brought to you by Huddle. Huddle connects us with the teams so we can see all the coaches' game film and give you in-depth analysis on NAIA football. This program also airs on the Urban Edge Network. Download the Urban Edge Network app for all the NAIA championship events, regular game days, and a whole lot more. You can see all of the NAIA on the Urban Edge Network. Download the app now. This program is part of all the great coverage on the VictorySportsNetwork.com for all the latest in NAIA football and other sports. Check out VictorySportsNetwork.com.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is John Gruden, the old coach, down here in Tampa, Florida, just studying some football. And I just got to tell you, there is nobody covering NAIA football like the Victory Sports Network. Nobody. They've been doing it for over 20 years, and they know how great football is at this level. Now let's get going. Here is NAIA football with Dannelly and Donnelly. Let's go.
NAIA football is the true version of what college football is supposed to be. And it is the best classroom experience an 18 to 22-year-old male can have. One of the most valuable parts of a college education is that experience. It's life in a microcosm, and it's just something special for a young man to have to experience.
And don't you let a moment go without thinking about what's there for you to reach out and grasp.
NAIA football with Dannelly and Donley. I'm the aforementioned Jason Dannelly. Thank you for coming in and checking out some NAIA football this week. Had a big weekend of games, some near upsets, some teams in the top 25 that really needed to win to make their lives a lot easier at making the NAIA championship series. That didn't happen for a couple teams, and now everything's in disarray. We've got a whole bunch of stuff here to talk about. Pat Donley will join me in just a little bit. Let's run through a couple games here before we bring in Pat and get all of his analysis and breakdown. Of course, around the NAIA, brought to you by the American Diabetes Association. November is Diabetes Month. All right, a couple games to look at here. We thought it would be a featured game, ended up not being too much of a featured game as Friends down Kansas Wesleyan 63-6. Dakota State improves to 6-2 with a 44-14 victory over Mayville State. You've got Evangel continuing on their winning ways and heading up their division of the KCAC to be, well, kind of the sole proprietor that's looking at making it to the NAIA Championship Series out of their half of the league. Montana Tech takes sole control of the Frontier Conference East with their win over Rocky Mountain. Campbellsville and Faulkner, we thought it could be a trap game. Was not a trap game. Campbellsville handled business 62-9. And then a little bit of an overtime scenario here. Cumberland's, who last week beat Bethel 34-10, takes Cumberland, Tennessee, who earlier this season knocked off Campbellsville to overtime. Cumberland, Tennessee, the Phoenix, that is, they get the victory 40-37 and stay on that outside chance, maybe possibly making the NAIA Championship Series. Elsewhere in the GPAC, we had one game nearly go to an upset, but Dordt ended up getting the 31-26 victory off of a late interception in that game. Dordt, hey, doesn't matter how you win, just keep winning. They're undefeated. They're the only undefeated team in the Great Plains Athletic Conference. Northwestern goes to overtime against Midland to get a 23-17 victory. Grandview, just kind of Grandview things. They were up 21-3 late, gave up a touchdown in the fourth quarter, 21-10. Grandview was in control of this game the entire time. Siena Heights stays undefeated in the Mid-States Football Association Mid-East with a 28-20 victory over Defiance College. They're 5-3 overall. That doesn't look like a great record to make the NAIA Championship Series, but they got a game this week that we're going to talk about that could potentially put this team that is in their last year of college football into the postseason. Peru State, William Penn, it was a big game in the heart. We're kind of feeling out if William Penn was going to be able to hold the Bobcats down. Bobcats have been streaky, but William Penn, they pull away with the victory. Real nice third quarter by the Statesmen to get the 42-21 win. And Reinhardt stays undefeated in the Appalachian Athletic Conference with a win over first-year program Rio Grande 56-0. Best games coming up here momentarily, but before we do that, we've got to introduce the man that watches all the film, breaks it all down, and actually knows everything, well, not everything, but a lot about the world of football. Pat Donley. Hi, Pat.
Jason Dannelly, how are we?
Oh, as a man once said to me at the University of Cumberland in Williamsburg, Kentucky, Pat, if I was any better, I'd have to sit on my hands to keep myself from clapping.
Was that John Bland?
No, it was David Paul Estes, actually, their play-by-play guy.
Gotcha.
David DP Estes used to do some writing for the Victory Sports Network back in the day. He's one of the OGs. I like that guy.
I was going to say it was John Bland. I used to have, or I would have had to have had subtitles to understand John Bland. Love him to death. What a wonderful guy. But he had a Southern accent like I would have had. Trying to like decipher that. I'm usually pretty good with accents, but that was a good one.
Anyway, big weekend. Some games there that we kind of thought would be some big games ended up not being. Wow, Friends over Kansas Wesleyan, big time, 63-6.
It was a feature game, what we thought would be a feature game. And I went back and watched at least the first few possessions of that game. A couple things happened there. Obviously, jumped out to a lead, Friends did. I wanted to see the offense again. I wanted to see Cavante Baker and the Falcons run that system against a pretty good K-Dub team that had strong record, kind of moving up in the world and really kind of, had our eye on that team. And Jason, I tell you what, they have compliments, meaning Friends. They have compliments to the base concepts of that system now. It's like they have an answer to anything that you want to do. I think it's just awesome to watch. And I'm not an option guy. I had to coach option one time. I worked in high school football, and I had to teach some triple option stuff as a coach. And it's like I'm a passing game guy. It's like you might as well just tell me. It's like, oh gosh, it's option. But I tell you what, it's fun to watch them as Friends. And Cavante just runs it beautifully. I mean, they've got some cool elements to their option system. I mean, they've got some like the belly play where they get us like almost like a sweep action with Cavante. He had a 75-yard touchdown, really kind of broke the game open. And then they had some special teams plays too. So, I mean, Friends is firing all cylinders, Jason. You're talking all three phases. It really just overwhelmed K-Dub, who I think is, a pretty decent team, but, Friends has kind of done this all year and, kind of just waiting for, can somebody give them some issues? And no one has up until this point. So I definitely wanted to see that one. And I did watch, at least the first quarter and a half of it.
Yeah. And then it was like, well, okay, got a pretty good idea of how this one's going to play out.
Exactly.
Friends is a dangerous team, rated 4th in the coaches poll, rated 5th in my poll. I think seeding in the postseason, and we'll talk more about this later on. We won't get too deep into it because we've got some featured games that we want to get through here. But I think seeding in the postseason for them could really, aid them in a run at getting to the semifinals. And you get to the semifinals, you're one step away from a national championship. Like it's been a while since Kansas Wesleyan had a team a couple years ago, but it's been a while since we've legitimately looked at the KCAC, if ever, really outside of K-Dub a couple years ago, and said that team's got a shot. And with Friends and their system and everything that they do, and the fact that they, have been to the postseason, they challenged the national champion last year. Like this is a team that's rolling and staying focused and doing all the things that they're supposed to do. So we'll break that whole scenario down here a little bit. Let's get into some of the games out your direction. We had ourselves a track meet in Upland, Indiana. Taylor had an opportunity late in this game, Pat, to potentially have a possession, tie things up, turn the ball over. Unfortunately, Indiana Wesleyan gets the win. Huge numbers from their offense and huge offensive numbers for everybody in this game.
Yeah, not much defense. Obviously, the statement of the year, exciting game, another obvious statement of the year. And like you said, Jason, I mean, Taylor, gets the ball back with a chance to essentially tie this thing. And you're not sure what the scenario. I guess they had to score, then go for 2 to tie it.
Yep.
And had a turnover.
Still a possession away
Absolutely.
From being able to do it.
And Iowa created a turnover, had a pick, and that's how the game ended. But it was tooth and nail at the end. I mean, it was a tight football game, and Taylor just constantly, tons of grit, tons of resiliency of keep coming back and competing. Played tough when, the thing is, they shut Indiana Wesleyan out to get back into in the fourth quarter. And again, it's like they had chances. They really did. Indiana Wesleyan had the huge second quarter, but I mean, Taylor just kind of kept pace as much as they possibly could up and down the field. And we've kind of talked about it before. You know, we think Indiana Wesleyan's a top end team, you know, top 15 certainly. You know, you have them at 13. But you know, the defense is kind of the question mark. I mean,
Yeah.
they've given up huge numbers and huge point totals to Marion earlier in the year. I mean, Kaiser beat them obviously earlier this season, like Marion. And then a game like this, which Taylor's a good football team. I'm not saying that, but they're still a 5-4 football team.
Yeah.
5-3 prior to this, and you rack up 580 on IWU. I mean, that's significant. And Indiana Wesleyan's not going to win a national championship giving that up. They can't outscore people when they get into postseason play. That's just not going to happen. And Indiana Wesleyan's going to win this league, in my opinion. You know, I think they're going to outscore Siena Heights, I think, for the conference championship. That's going to happen, in my opinion, if I had to bet. At the same time, they're going to get themselves in the postseason. They've got to tighten things up defensively, or it's going to be a quick exit for the Wildcats. And I think they're a great football team, especially offensively.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's some things here. This was an exciting game, this game specifically, and you got to tip your cap to Taylor in that great environment in Upland and them, you know, throwing haymakers all day. And they were going to compete, and they have such resolve and character. And this was an entertaining football game if you love offense. But some things that the Wildcats of Indiana Wesleyan have got to figure out defensively if they plan on going far in this postseason coming up.
Yeah, you look at the history of the season for Indiana Wesleyan. I mean, they put up 31 points on Kaiser first week of the year, that week 0 game, 38-31 final. And IWU has proven like they can put points on teams. They just haven't been able to stop any teams from putting points on them. They got to get that tightened up in the next couple of weeks here. You know, big game offensively for these guys. Lothy, 435 yards. Isaac Smith, 11 receptions for 161 yards in the score. Drew Dutton has 3 touchdowns. And then Nathan Parker for Taylor, 247 yards. We're going to give our primetime performance from Walgreens to Aaron Lothy in this game. Quarterback, Indiana Wesleyan, 435 yards, 5 touchdowns. He did set the single season passing record for Indiana Wesleyan, and they're a team that's thrown the ball a little bit. So keep that in mind too, the fact that we got 2 weeks left in the season, and he already set the single season record. So been a heck of a season for Lothy and for Indiana Wesleyan. We'll just see how things progress. We'll talk more about them a little bit later on. We stay in the Mid-States Football Association, Pat. Olivet Nazarene came into this after a close loss to Marion last week. They needed to win this game to really keep NAIA Championship Series alive. It's not saying that they're not a deserved team, but it's going to be really, really tough for anybody to get in with 3 losses. Olivet Nazarene picks up their 3rd loss to St. Francis. 30-22 victory for the Cougars in this one. You know, a lot of offense in this game, maybe not as many points, but 512 to 424. I mean, they were slinging it around the field, Pat.
Yeah, some big plays in this game. You know, I thought all of it had a little bit of a hangover from the Marion game. I didn't see the same maybe intensity and speed. You know, it's a travel, it's a road game. Yep. And I thought, you know, St. Francis was flat coming out. I thought the first quarter was really, I mean, it's like, guys, this is for, you know, both these teams to get in the postseason. I thought both teams were just kind of ho-hum, to be honest with you. Things really cranked up in the second quarter. I thought St. Francis really played well. I thought Josh Kolka kind of got his feet under him and really played well. I think it's the best game St. Francis has played this season, really in that second quarter, you know, with an offensive explosion. You know, I think, you know, St. Francis has a talented roster. They've got a good group of guys. They still got to work on tackling, Jason. They still miss a lot of tackles, give it some big plays. And I think they shored those things up, you know, after that, you know, that first quarter, middle of the second quarter, they tightened those things up and played much better. But I think it's overall maybe the best game St. Francis has played all year. And I give them a lot of credit because that was a tough situation last week, winning that game, you know, on a 2-point try that St. X tried to win the game. And it's an emotional win for St. Francis in a rivalry situation. Then you come into a game like this back at home and essentially for, you know, number 2 in the conference, you know, standings and a chance to keep your playoff, you know, hopes alive. And St. Francis won the game. So, you know, you got to tip your cap to them of, you know, putting, you know, one of their best efforts of the season, if not the best, up until this point together and winning a big football game. So that's a big home victory for the Cougars. And, you know, I'm a proud alumni today. So it's a great win for the Cougs.
There you go. I thought Josh Kolka decision-making in
Very
this
good.
game was really good. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, looked efficient, and that's what you need going into the postseason. If you're a team, that is on the verge, kind of on that bubble of making the NAIA Championship Series, he's got to play well. He's got to make good decisions. If they make the NAIA Championship Series, they're going to be a 19, 17, 18, 20 seed, something like that. And if that's the case, like you can't go into that game and turn the ball over potentially. So very efficient game for him. One thing I do want to bring up, I tell you what, the NAIA's got some great tight ends this year. Olivet Nazarene's Blake Lamb, 7 catches, 160 yards. He's had some tremendous games. You got Carson Ochoa up at Carroll College, who had a big game. You've got Tanner Zimmerman at Benedictine, who's had some big games. Like each one of those guys is on the verge of being an All-American again this year. And then there's a slew of guys after that I didn't even mention. So some really great play at the tight end from Olivet Nazarene's Blake Lamb in this game and continued through this season. Olivet Nazarene can keep trucking. They can keep themselves above 500 and have a winning record again for another season. I think they've had one every year since 2017. But St. Francis keeps their hopes alive, and we give our Panera Bread primetime performance to Josh Kolka, 25 for 39, 288, 2 touchdowns in that big goose egg at the interception part there. Real nice for Mr. Kolka. We move on. We go to the KCAC. This was a fun game to watch, man. Like it just points and up and down the field, and Jaleel Brown looking like an All-American, since we're talking All-Americans. I mean, this was a fun game. Maybe not so much if you're a Southwestern fan, but overall, this from you and I standpoint, where we just watch these because we like watching NAIA football, this was a good one to watch, man.
No question about it. And I want to make a push. And again, not that you have a heck of a lot more influence than I do. I am a huge fan of McPherson as an at-large. And I'm going to kind of use Southwestern as an example of last year, where Southwestern got in as the at-large last year, I believe, correct?
Correct, yep.
Yeah, because the Friends won the league last year, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, and the leagues were all messed around. So the automatic on the other side was Kansas Wesleyan. Friends got in as the automatic. Southwestern got in as the at-large, and McPherson was right on the edge last year of getting there. But McPherson had losses to Southwestern and Friends, and one more, I think, too.
So Southwestern, it was a year ago. And again, not that we're prognosticators necessarily for postseason, but I would assume Southwestern's probably going to be out now of the postseason. But what a good football team. And I'll get to them in here in a second. But I'm going to say this. I think McPherson getting in this season, watching them in this game, and I tell you what, we talk about their defense. I mean, they've been proven for the most part all season. Again, they gave up some points in this game, and a couple of those are special teams touchdowns, so it's not all in the defense. And I'm going to say McPherson could, to me, be like Southwestern last year in the postseason, and that make a bunch of noise in the NAIA postseason once in as an at-large. I think they play good, strong defense, got a great running game, and I think they have timely passing game enough with balance to be a real problem for people. I'm a big fan of McPherson, and watching this game, very closely. This is an exciting game, another, great offensive game, and incredibly entertaining game to watch. So I want to push for McPherson, get them in the playoffs. They're absolutely deserving, I think. And this game is closer with special teams touchdowns, and they got to tighten up some special teams there with the old Bulldogs there. But I tell you what, Southwestern probably a year away, Jason. You can kind of see. I think they're replenishing some guys that were off that playoff team a year ago with some young players, and then there's still some of those guys that are remaining from that team last year that are just incredibly dynamic. I mean, they got some speed, Southwestern, on that team, and one of my notes here and exclamation points is dynamic players, offensive players, big play players. And both sides have that. Again, you talk about, Brown. I mean, what a dynamic player he is. Again, carried 45 times and that type of production and speed and all the things that he can do. But, this game was full of playmakers, certainly on both sides. But, I really am a fan of McPherson because, again, you have that balance offensively, run and pass, strong defense. And I think they can really make some noise in the postseason if they can get it. Well, big win for them to give them an opportunity.
I think they're well coached. Jeremiah Fiskus kind of took things over, and McPherson was at a low, and he's slowly built things back. He has established a program. He's established a culture. That's what you see with McPherson, and they've gotten better from last year to this year. They challenged Friends early. They got up on Friends, forced a couple turnovers, was able to capitalize on those turnovers. They did the same thing in this game against Southwestern. So very well coached team in McPherson, Kansas. At this point, I think if they went out with one loss, I mean, how do you not get them? How do you not have a one-loss team in the postseason? So if they went out, I think their destiny is going to be in the NAIA Championship Series. Unfortunately for Southwestern, 3 losses is going to be super tough. They're sitting at 6-3 right now. All their losses to teams, that are going to be in the NAIA Championship Series. They lost to Friends, they lost to Evangel, and they lost to McPherson. And the argument can be like, well, the only teams that we've lost to have made the postseason. Yes, that's correct. But you've also proven you can't beat 3 of the teams that are in the postseason. So
I like Southwestern too. I like them.
I do have a comment here, and I do have to bring this up. Stats are wrong. Jalil had 360 and 4 touchdowns. So a little bit on this game. This was like the last slide that I had to put together. And I watched the game. They weren't really doing stats live. The live stats went down in the second quarter. They had to redo the stats after the game, and they statted this afternoon. And about 3:00 this afternoon, this is what the statistics came up as. So, I mean, it's possible that Jalil Brown had 360 yards rushing. I mean,
360. That might be. That's got to be a record of some sort if it's 360.
I think. Well. This is from 2004. I don't have the most recent version right here of the.
That's a lot.
The NAIA record.
274 is a whole heck of a lot. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not sure. Yeah. Here's the thing. Talk about the love of the NAIA. I will tell you, statistics at the NAIA level is an absolute gong show. At times. I've seen them all, my friends out there watching our podcast, listening to our podcast. Stats are quite the experience.
Yes. Derek Williams, 409 yards, Eastern Montana.
Good God, it's a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot of running.
It's a lot of yards.
And if it's not him, it's been a more recent one that's more than 409 yards. So my apologies for not just having that baked in, everyone.
Now I know it's over 400. I figured the mid threes would have been the record, but yeah, if it's over 4, that's significant. That's all significant, but that's insane. Did your Raiders win, by the way? I saw they were tied going to OT.
I saw they went to OT. I haven't seen any update yet. No. Jacksonville up 30-23 in OT.
I'm sorry, bud. Anyway, back to what we were talking about.
Jalil Brown, really good.
Really good game. Yeah, great job. Oh, yeah, stats in the NAIA. I mean, literally, you could have a student doing them. You could have the SID doing them. You could have some hired hand in a local community doing them. It's all over the place. So, yeah, give Jason a break here.
And I appreciate Brad bringing that up because I did want to say, like, this game, statistically, like, the jury might still be out. But regardless, the only stat that matters at the end of the day, McPherson won 53-40. We know that to be accurate.
Good game.
Yeah. Primetime performance from Hope Federal Credit Union. Yeah. Jalil Brown. I mean,
a lot of yards and 3 touchdowns.
Might have had that many. Might have had 360. Might have had, I don't know, could come away with 500. End of the day, really good. Mid-South Conference. What the hell is happening in the Mid-South Conference? Bethel last week loses 34-10 to the University of Cumberland's. And then this week, they get Georgetown at home. That score is wrong, by the way. That's 26-23 was the final in overtime. 26-23 is the final. Then Bethel, beats Georgetown, top 16 rated team by the NAIA coaches poll. They get to win here. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, I'll be real honest. Like, this was a great game between these two. Tight game, went into overtime. I watched this game. I didn't walk away from seeing either of these teams in this game and going, yep, we need to, those guys, they're right on the edge of making the postseason. Like, honestly, I wasn't over impressed. I wasn't under impressed. I just kind of saw two pretty good NAIA football teams going at one another.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean, Bethel scored 2 offensive touchdowns in this game. I mean, let's be honest. It's a lot of field goals, and there was a pick six. So, you know, I will say Bethel, I thought defensively created some turnovers. You know, I thought that was, you know, something that was really positive. Yeah, I don't think it was a great offensive game. I mean, yeah, there's some production compared to the games we just talked about. I don't think it's any comparison. Yeah, it's a close game. I'm not sure it's a great game, to be honest with you, Jason. That's just my opinion. Yeah, it goes to overtime. You know, it's exciting. And I certainly don't want to, discredit, Bethel for winning the game. They found a way to do it. But yeah, it's a pick six in the first quarter that Bethel created and, turned into a touchdown. And they created other turnovers. Did a nice job defensively with some looks that were challenging for Garrett Sloniker and turned him over a couple of times. Georgetown had a lead, Jason. They kind of methodically, chipped away, had some scores. They scored twice in the third quarter. They had a 20-17 lead with 1:25 left. Bethel really hadn't done much offensively, really all game. And we're backed up and had 1:25 and had to, get a chance to put themselves in a situation to kick the game tying field goal, and did so and put a drive together. I give them a lot of credit. And made some throws and had a couple quarterback scrambles and things of that nature, and a lot of effort plays. You see their guys, trying to break tackles after making a catch and trying to get the extra yards, fighting to get out of bounds. And I thought their clock management and coaching there was done very, very well.
Yeah, Coach Springer doing a great job in his first year.
Coach Springer did a great job. His staff did a great job of really managing that situation well. I want to say that, Jason, they had no timeouts left. They ran a final play with 10 seconds left to really get into a manageable kick situation. Through a comeback route to the sideline, caught, ran out of bounds quickly, very good discipline on that receiver standpoint. I think 4 seconds left, 5 seconds left, something like that. Had the kick opportunity with no timeouts left and big time kick, and nailed it. I think it was a good 45-yarder, I think, Jason, if I'm not mistaken, to put it overtime. And Bethel defense once again played extremely well, forced Georgetown to a field goal situation. Georgetown makes the field goal, Bethel's football, and it's literally 3 run plays, and it's physical. And the final run play literally dragging Georgetown Tiger defenders into the end zone with that. And who was the runner on that play? Was that Kirk?
Ryan Kirk. It was Ryan Kirk. Yep.
Just a tremendous, and that was just an effort play. That was just a will to take the football in the end zone. For the Wildcats, and that was just a great run.
And the other thing I noticed on that game-winning drive in overtime, I wonder if Bethel saw something defensively after that first run, and they said no, like on the ball, go again, because they basically went no huddle and got up there and didn't allow for any substitution. And I'm wondering if they caught Georgetown in something on that drive that they liked, because we hadn't seen them just run the ball physically like that, play after play after play, until that drive. So that's where I kind of look at, the coaching of Bethel. They 2 years ago, they were in the postseason. Last year, they didn't make the postseason. Michael Jasper leaves, goes to Stetson. Chris Springer gets elevated on the staff to become the head coach. This is kind of his team now. And you're really seeing some nice progression in a first-year head coach, getting his guys out there, getting his guys playing, and playing well. This was a big victory for Bethel, who now sits at 4-3 and is pretty high up in the NAIA Performance Index. But again, I still look at 3 losses and trying to make it into the NAIA Championship Series as being very tough, especially for both of these teams who are now picked up that third loss.
Yeah, I mean, there was just a will there, Jason. And I'm with you that last drive. And again, I'm watching this as I'm driving. I probably shouldn't admit to that. So yeah, you're right. There was some tempo there. You're right. That's a great point on your part of an observation. And I don't remember exactly the scheme. I thought it was maybe his inside zone. Maybe it was a gap scheme.
Yep.
I don't remember off the time. I watched a lot of football, a lot of different games. But yeah, you're right. They were not allowing Georgetown to substitute or make any type of communication or adjustment on that series. And it was just like literally, we're going to run it in between the tackles. It's going to be physical. And Kirk just said, "I'm running people over to get to the end zone." And I thought it was really, yes, it was a great effort play on his part, but it was the offensive line was into the play, and there was some push there to really guide him into the end zone to win the game. And it was an incredibly physical final 3 plays for the Bethel Wildcats, and a really great win. And found a way. Again, scoring 2 offensive touchdowns, you don't think you should win a game, but they found a way to do it. And it was great, kicking game. And like you said, coaching in situations where put yourself in a minute 25 to get to an opportunity to kick a long field goal to tie it, then getting into an overtime situation and really have an awareness to have an advantage in tempoing, not allowing those adjustments to take place, and run the football well and really kind of an easy score in those 3 plays. Jason, just run the football right at the Tigers.
Going back to regulation real quick before we move on from this game, what would you call that set that Bethel was in late in the game? It's kind of like diamonds to the right.
Quads?
Yeah.
Just
You just call it quads.
Yeah, it's quads. You have 4 receiver like a diamond set. Yeah. So what it's going to be a number situation, but it was kind of cool. So they're basically seeing how many numbers are lined up over there. And then what's going to happen is, do I have an advantageous box then? If they're going to remove defenders out to cover 4, then in theory, if they do, I should have numbers, to run the ball with your Q. So that's what it was. But it's kind of cool how they do that. They were very creative. I like what Bethel does. So I think there's, like you mentioned it last week, Jason, we haven't watched a lot of Bethel. We watch closely in this one, obviously, that there's some things in place for the future with Coach Springer, what he's doing. And you said it, I think, last week in talking about, there's some things in place as a first-year coach, kind of getting things going because they have their moments. They've had their moments this season. And this is another example of that they're doing some good things to build for the future.
Yeah. Next year will be the test because you got some guys that were holdovers and upperclassmen that'll be graduating. You've got new recruits coming in, so you kind of got to put your own signature on it. Ryan Kirk gets our primetime performance with those 2 touchdowns, had the game winner for Bethel University over Georgetown College, 26-23. Don't mind the typo, folks. We go to the Frontier Conference West in a trap game that we talked about last week. Georgetown's game was also a trap game that we talked about last week. There's some trap games this week, and this was the one that I really felt like, Pat, was the biggest trap because nobody was giving Southern Oregon, much of a chance. Yeah, they were going to have it at home, but they're just not the team that they were last year. And Carroll went out there and they got everything they wanted and more from Southern Oregon. The Red Raiders had an opportunity still after Carroll went up 41-40 in this game to go down the field, potentially have a game-winning drive or get in field goal territory to try to kick a game winner, but they just couldn't get anything going on their final drive of the game. Caden Hewitt, 269 yards, 5 touchdowns. Talked about Carson Ochoa earlier when we were talking about tight ends. 7 catches, 108 yards, 4 touchdowns in this game. A nice passing game from Southern Oregon in this one as well as Dom Montiel, 308 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did have a pick, and Fresh Eisen from the running back position. This might be the first 100-yard rusher that Southern Oregon has had this year, or at least I don't mean to disparage anyone. The first 100-yard rusher they had in a game that wasn't against Simpson. No offense, but Simpson's second-year program, Southern Oregon should be beating them like they were. So, some good things we saw from Southern Oregon, a lot of fight from them late in the season, despite the fact that they don't have a chance to make the postseason. They really pushed Carroll College in this game, and the Saints got all they wanted and more, and the Saints are going to be lined up for another good one this week. But good to see Carroll get the victory and keep those NAIA Championship Series hopes alive.
Yeah, I think when Carroll College is in the postseason, Jason, and Carroll College is good, it's good for the NAIA. I've said that before.
Yep.
It's a blue blood program. Arguably the greatest dynasty, arguably in NAIA history that happened about 20 years ago. So it's good to see him back in the mix. And it's a good program. We talked about him a couple of weeks ago in their victory over Montana Western. Caden Hewitt is a good quarterback who has progressed throughout the year and had a big game in this one. Carson Ochoa, arguably the best tight end in the NAIA. Very, very good defense. They gave up some points in this game. You got to give credit to Southern Oregon. What are they playing for? It's purely pride and play in front of your home crowd. It's a tough place to play in Ashland, and it's a good coaching staff and a resilient group. So you got to give them credit to have the fight to play spoiler against a great team. Where I think Carroll is again in the driver's seat now in the Frontier West, right? West? No,
Frontier West.
Yes.
West.
Because Tech is in the East. Yeah.
Yep.
I use this East-West thing. This is different now. First year of it, right? Yeah. This is
stop changing things on us.
Just all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the mid-states East and West, and the teams are like 20.
You remember when the Frontier used to be double round robin? That wasn't that long ago. And now we've got an East-West.
It was so fun back in the day playing them in the playoffs, those teams, and getting to watch. Okay, did I watch Carroll versus Montana Tech the first game or the second time they played?
Yeah.
for my evaluation of this playoff game we're playing. Yeah. Anyway,
or in certain years, the third time they played, because then they played in the postseason.
100%, absolutely true. So yeah, this is a big time win for Carroll, and again, to escape, probably Southern Oregon's maybe best effort of the year to put forth that type of effort. And like you said, 100-yard rusher. They've had injuries, they've had really a tough go of it this year, the Red Raiders, big time effort. And the Fighting Saints came out with a victory. So good on them, and keep chugging along in that Frontier West Division.
Yeah, we're not done talking about Carroll College quite yet. They'll be coming back up again in the show here a little bit later on. Carson Ochoa gets our Blue Diamond Almonds primetime performance: 7 catches, 108 yards, 4 touchdowns. I wonder. I need to look. Like that's. I think he leads. Well, I don't know. Tanner Zimmerman had a couple 3-touchdown games too, or at least one. So there's some tight ends catching touchdown passes this year. All right, we move on. The Victory Sports Network NAIA Football Top 25 will be out tomorrow morning at victorysportsnetwork.com at 4 in the morning. If you're up that early, that's when I post it. That's because they taught me all sorts of things about posting articles at the same time every week so that the Google AI and a logarithm picks it up and you maximize the number of whatever. It's going to be out tomorrow morning when you wake up. Just check it out, victorysportsnetwork.com. Top 25, let's run through it, Pat. Grandview got a Grandview win. Kaiser played Ave Maria. Easy win there. Benedictine blew out Missouri Valley. Friends blew out Kansas Wesleyan. Montana Tech didn't blow out Rocky Mountain, but beat them by more than they did when they played earlier this year. Any thoughts on these 5?
No.
All right, moving on. I'm good with it, man, because we got some fun stuff we're going to talk about here in a second.
Right.
Dort goes to the limit against Hastings College. Hastings had an opportunity late in the game to potentially win this. They were going into their own end zone, down about the 10-yard line. Wide receiver catches the ball or has the ball in his hand, kind of turns upfield, pops out of his hands. Dort defender right there, picks it off, and Dort ends up winning the game. But hey, Dort, you get the win. You get the win. That's all that matters. Marion gets kind of a ho-hum 28-11 win over St. Francis, Illinois. We talked about the Carroll game just now. Lindsey Wilson didn't play, and Morningside blew out Doane. I'm assuming you have nothing.
Well, no, but Hastings, Hastings is always in the mix, man.
Yeah, they're. It's not this year. They've just really. They've played solid football this year, and I think they're just like they're on that verge of turning the corner. And I kind of said that in my preseason article. I felt like this would be a year that they would take a step forward and I thought they'd be a little higher up in the GPAC. I thought they would be where Concordia is right now at 6-2. But nonetheless, Hastings has had a nice season compared to where they've been in the last couple of years.
The old horseshoe on the helmet, it's like they're always in the mix, man. The luck just didn't swing their way this time. Like you said, that final play is just a tough one. But they have, you look at their scores. I mean, they gave Morningside all they could handle. I mean, they really have put together some good football this year. So got to give Hastings some credit.
Coach Matt Franzen getting it done out there in Hastings, Nebraska. All right. Campbellsville was in a game that we thought would be a trap game. It was not. Ottawa, Arizona. I don't stay up that late, folks. And when Ottawa plays at 9:00 my time, 7:00 kickoff out there, I don't catch the end of the game. It was like 28-0 in the second quarter. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to worry about this one. We talked about Indiana Wesleyan. Southeastern gets a 42-9 victory over Warner, and College of Idaho beats Arizona Christian 28-7, setting up for a big game this week against the Carroll College Fighting Saints. Any thoughts, Pat, on this grouping?
We talked about Campbellsville last week. They've got 3 games to prepare them for a postseason run. First off, to win the conference championship, they got to win all 3, and sets them up well for a postseason run. This was a long trip down to Faulkner, and mission accomplished. Played very, very well. I'm sure angry in their defeat last week and not playing very well. Of course, I better watch what I say. It could be used against me later on with the Campbellsville Fighting Tigers, who I love, by the way. I love Campbellsville. But, very good showing this week of responding after that loss. And, another great challenge. Like we just saw a very resilient Bethel Wildcat team for Campbellsville to tangle with this week. And step 2 of those 3 that are going to be challenges for the Campbellsville Fighting Tigers.
Moving on, 16 through 20, Georgetown, they lost. They had the 26-23 OT loss. St. Thomas beats up on the other Thomas in their conference out of Georgia 66-13. Southwestern has a loss. William Penn gets the victory, and Montana Western puts it on Eastern Oregon 56-14. McPherson gets the W. Olivet Nazarene, we talked about that. Northwestern goes into overtime against Midland. They're sitting at 5-3, and they're in the top 25. Northwestern's a quality team. Pat, this year, I just don't think they're quite there. And then Evangel and Texas Wesleyan gets the win. Your thoughts, Pat?
Yeah, Northwestern, I think just in like we talked about, just a bit of a rebuild. I'm not saying it's a full rebuild, like they're, replaced their whole roster. It's just there's some youth there. But they've won some big games, obviously. Won a rivalry game 2 weeks ago against Morningside. Surprised the world, really, for what, where things were at that point. And they're capable, certainly. Found a way to win this game. But yeah, probably not a postseason team this year, but something to build on for the future because it's a proud program that's been incredibly successful the last handful of years.
Got a comment here. Watch out for Southeastern Kaiser. Oh, we will. Don't worry, folks.
Oh, don't worry.
We're going to be talking about that one. All right. So let's talk about conference standings here real quick, because 13 of the 20 bids that go to the NAIA Championship Series, 13 of the 20 are conference champions. So here's a rundown of what each conference looks like right now. In the Appalachian Athletic Conference, you've got Reinhardt sitting at 4-0, but this could be a mess again, Pat, just like last year, because Reinhardt still has to play Pikeville and Point, and I believe, and then Pikeville still obviously has Reinhardt. So if Reinhardt drops a game, we're going to have like the whole three-way tie scenario and everything again. So Reinhardt could do everybody a favor and just win out in their conference. That would be good. Montana Tech sitting top of the East there, above Dakota State and Rocky Mountain. Carroll College and College of Idaho, they'll get set to do battle here. We'll talk about that momentarily. Both of those teams are undefeated, looking like probably the only ones out of the West. And then in the GPAC, you've got Dort undefeated, Morningside with one loss in the conference, and Concordia sitting there at 6-2. Talking this group of playoffs, we've got 3 different slides we're going to talk about. What stands out to you, Pat? What do you want to talk about?
Obviously, a huge game this weekend with Carroll and College of Idaho. I think both are certainly playing well right now, and I think College of Idaho has been on a slow build really all season, Jason.
Yeah,
and really probably gave Montana Tech the best game that they've played all season or had to face all season, an opponent. I think definitely a playoff quality team, and we've seen that since the beginning of the season to where they are right now. And I feel the same way about Carroll. I mean, had to fight a little bit, probably a little extra than we maybe anticipated against Southern Oregon this week, but they're a resilient group, and they just went to Dillon a few weeks ago and beat a good Montana Western team in a battle and have won the games that they're supposed to win, Carroll College. So, I think that's obviously a huge, huge matchup this week. It's kind of strange, but I think the GPAC only gets 2 in, Jason. It's kind of weird. I love Concordia, but it's just one of those things where it's probably the way that it's looking. And then, like you said, back to the Appalachian. Well, Reinhardt just please win out to make this simple, because it's too difficult otherwise. And I think that they can. I think they should. Of watching these teams throughout the year, I think Reinhardt's an incredibly talented team. Watch them play like Lindsey Wilson, who I think the world of. They can run with them. They can play with them. I saw them against Southeastern early in the season. They can run and play with them. I mean, that's a playoff level caliber team, and certainly Reinhardt is at that level. So take care of business, Eagles. Win the thing, and let's make it simple for everyone.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. All right, we move on to the Hart Conference in the KCAC. So Grandview sitting at 4-0 right now, obviously in control of the Hart North. The Hart South gets a little bit interesting as Baker has won 5 straight. They're undefeated, and Benedictine is undefeated. Those two teams are going to play one another this week. And if Baker were to upset Benedictine, Baker is in the driver's seat to get the at-large, despite the fact Benedictine is rated 3. If Benedictine loses that game, they'll go down to 10 or 11, probably still make the NAIA Championship Series. But it could get very interesting in the Hart South. KCAC Bissell being controlled by Friends right now, and Friends has beat McPherson and Kansas Wesleyan there. So right then and there, you've already got Friends basically locking that one up. And then over in the Kessinger, same thing. Evangel has beat Ottawa this year, who is sitting at 2-1. So Evangel currently sitting undefeated, looking like they've got the KCAC Kessinger wrapped up, as long as they take care of business, folks. Like, there's 2 very important weeks in front of us, and some crazy crap can happen and throw this all out of line. But this is just kind of how we're thinking on things.
Let's start at the top here, Jason. Let me ask you this. And I watched William Penn yesterday play Peru State. I was just kind of curious because that was kind of one of those games we thought, maybe like a marquee game. It was actually another entertaining game. Pretty good offensive teams and all that. I like William Penn, Jason. We talked about him, throughout the year. And I can't remember who they dropped a game to. Obviously, they lost to Grandview. Was there another loss?
It was just Grandview.
Just Grandview's only loss they have.
Grandview's their only loss. Yep.
I think they're deserving to get in, Jason, if they take care of business throughout. I mean, I'm seriously, I think they're deserving. I think they're a playoff level team. I do. Just watching them, just passing the eye test of watching that football team. They run really well. They're physical. They're balanced offense. They play strong defense. I think they're a playoff level team. Just watching them play against Peru State, which Peru State's kind of all over the place, we know, but they are dynamic. They have some athletes, and William Penn can match up with them, and really did exceptionally well against them. So I think William Penn deserves to be in. I mean, Grandview is obviously going to win the thing, but at large, I like William Penn. The Heart South, okay, they have to play. There's a lot going on there. That time will take care of that, I think. And then there's obviously Friends, and I've already made my pitch for McPherson to get in. I really like that team a lot. Do 2 from the Kessinger division get in? I doubt it. Probably 1. Just Evangel.
One. Yeah, just Evangel.
Probably. So there's
nobody else over there that has a record to even get in. But I mean, the one thing I don't want to gloss over, because we're talking about next week's games, but Benedictine finishes up. They played Missouri Valley 66-7. Then they play Baker, and then they play Mid-American Nazarene.
Right.
So if you think about it just from that perspective, like Benedictine's playoffs start this week. I mean, they've got to keep winning, and they've got playoff caliber teams that they're going to be playing every week.
Well, we talked about last week that we've not talked a lot about Benedictine in some time because the games are all kind of backloaded, like these 2 coming up. And they're obviously going to be, a part of our big game matchups here the final 2 weeks of the season here. So, we know they're still pretty good. We just haven't talked about them a lot lately. So.
I mean, we talked about them because they played Morningside and then Grandview, lost to Grandview. Then they played Graceland back when we were still thinking Graceland could be challenging in the Heart North. They won that game 52-29. Since then, 48-10, 70-30, 52-21, 52-7, 78-3, and 66-7. That's why we haven't talked about them much.
Right.
That really hasn't been much of a game to talk about.
So I wonder if I hope they're healthy. I hope they're ready to roll. The Ravens are ready to roll because I think these are going to be 2 great games. I'm looking forward to them. Like you said, these are playoff games for them. And they're right back in the mix. Yeah, they're number 3 in the country, but we haven't talked about them a heck of a lot here lately. So could be a lot of fun here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the quick stat line here for Benedictine this week because I did not have a chance to. At least on offense, all the usual suspects are in the stat line. So there you have it. All right, moving on. Mid-South and the Mid-States and the Sooner. Well, the way things are shaping up here, you've got Campbellsville that has the tiebreaker over Lindsey Wilson at 3-1. Then you've got Lindsey Wilson and Bethel also sitting at 3-1. I think Bethel ends up being the odd team out just for the fact that they dropped some non-conference games. They've got those 3 losses. Campbellsville and Lindsey Wilson, both quality. Indiana Wesleyan, Siena Heights, they'll do battle this week. So that will get decided there. If Indiana Wesleyan wins it, pretty simple. Siena Heights wins it. Holy cow, we've got some at-larges that are going to get shaken up. Marion in control of the Midwest, and then in the Sooner, you've got Ottawa, Arizona, and Texas Wesleyan. We haven't talked much about the Sooner Conference. We're going to talk about them this week because Ottawa and Texas Wesleyan play one another. But again, like last year in the Appalachian, and then now 2 years ago in the Sooner Conference, this could all get screwed up because I believe it's Louisiana Christian's loss is to Ottawa, Arizona. So if Texas Wesleyan beats Ottawa, Arizona, Texas Wesleyan's final game of the season, I believe, is Louisiana Christian. So you have the possibility of all of them being one-loss teams in their conference and having to go to that whole thing.
And mayhem ensues.
Yes, for sure. Got a question here from Dave. With the qualifying system as it is, should the GPAC split into 2 divisions? They would need another team. Got to get another team to be able to split into 2. And there's not really a taker in the area. I mean, they'd have to steal Dakota State with the GPAC, given the way that the league is currently structured, is not going to take a state university, because Peru State also wanted in a couple years ago, and the structure of the league is faith-based institutions, so it throws out any of those possibilities. So you'd have to find somebody else for the GPAC to be able to split into 2 divisions in the future, and it would have to be a private liberal arts college, the way that the bylaws, constitution, whatever you call that, currently stand. Any other thoughts on this before I keep going off the rails here, Pat?
No, we should reopen Dana, though.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, folks. If you guys make the Victory Sports Network uber successful and I make $1 billion, I will buy that campus back. I will create the team to be able to split the GPAC into 2 right there.
There you go. Dana, Vikings, part 2.
Yeah. I don't know if you consider us experts, Pat, but some of our viewers do. Thanks, Dave. I do. We got one more league to get to here. The Sun Conference. Kaiser and Southeastern, they play this week. Kaiser wins. They're going to, be the league champion. They lose. We've got a mess. And then I've got to start looking up tiebreakers and doing all that stuff. So I don't want to do that. Kaiser could make it easy. Southwestern or Southeastern can make it really interesting.
They could.
All right. Games of the week. Got a couple slides for them here. I did get one question here real quick. Will Montana Tech sneak into the postseason? They lost to Tech by 10, Carroll by 8. Pretty close games. They're playing damn good football right now at 3 losses. It's just super tough. I know they played those teams tough, but the fan looks at it as we've only lost to teams that are going to be in the postseason. Like, we beat everybody else. That's how the fan looks at it. Like, we were so close to beating that team in the playoffs. The way the selection committee looks at it is, you have proven that there's 3 teams in the postseason you can't beat. So why should we put you in the postseason? So, I mean, I don't kill the messenger. I just know how both sides think on this.
Right.
All right. Games of the week, Pat. College of Idaho at Carroll College. Both teams with 1 loss this year. Both are undefeated in their half the league. And then we got Southeastern at Kaiser University. Another great one. Let's start up top. College of Idaho, we've mentioned it on the show, kind of a slow build this year. It kind of has played them their way into this. Hey, they've got a chance to win a conference championship. They've had some close games. They've had some nice victories. The 1-score victory at Eastern Oregon kind of makes me go, what the heck? Carroll, I think, has kind of been at that level all year. It took them a game or 2 to get going with Caden Hewitt at quarterback, but otherwise, this Carroll team has been playing really well all season. I think it's the Saints in this one. But that's why it's a featured game. That's why we're going to watch it. College of Idaho's got as good a chance as any, but Nelson Stadium's a tough place to play.
One of the toughest, in my opinion, again, having been there a few times and coached against those guys, and granted 20 years ago. I would agree with you. I think this is a score game. I think it's a 3-point game, a field goal game, or a touchdown game. I'm going to give it to Carroll as well, but I think it's a 28-24 type game is kind of where I'm thinking. And I think it's down to the wire, but really physical game. Both these teams are very well balanced and play strong defense. Yep. But I think Carroll is a team right now, in my opinion, that's kind of the team of destiny. We've kind of seen it for the last couple of years that they're getting so close to getting back into that, national prominence of getting that program, that great program with all the tradition, back into the national scene. And I can see Carroll, doing that this season by winning the conference championship, getting in as an automatic qualifier in the postseason. Just kind of my feeling how things have gone this year.
Yeah, Coach Purcell, kind of the same thing. We talk about some of these coaches coming in. Jeremiah Fiskus at McPherson, the slow build. Like, when he started, there were some things that had to get shored up. There's some things that had to get corrected. It's been a slow build to get Carroll College back into the postseason, and not just barely back in the postseason. And a victory this week gets them, I feel like, assured into the postseason, obviously as the conference champion, but kind of gives them that status of they're going to get a first round bye. They're going to get a home game then in the second round. It gets them back to that status, as opposed to we barely made it in, now we got to travel somewhere, or we barely made it in and we're on this play-in game. I think this kind of solidifies them as a strong postseason team. In the Sun Conference, we've got Southeastern and Kaiser. Now, you and I have both seen one or two games this year where Southeastern looked like they could beat anybody in the country. And we've also seen some games where you're going, what happened to that team we saw like 2 weeks ago? Kaiser, on the other hand, they've been them dudes, basically. They've been Kaiser all year, and they're going to get this game at home. So I think this is a very uphill climb for the Fire to try to get a win at Kaiser, but they got the horses to do it. Could they pull it off? I throw it to you.
It's possible, and here are the two things I think are incredibly important. I think number one, Southeastern, if they can find any way possible, I mean any way possible, to slow the run game of Kaiser down, any way they can. I don't know if it's committing bodies to the box in the run game. I don't know what it is. Some creative scheme, somehow, some way, defend the run well. They have to, because there's times that they've had issues with it.
Yep.
I think that's number one. And I think Coach Wall is a brilliant defensive mind, the head coach there. Really, really good coaching staff. There's no doubt. I know they know how to do it. Got to get the team to be able to execute it. So whatever that game plan is to stop the runs, number one. And I think it's going to be a heck of a lot of Nate Michael, just being the dual threat player that he is. Because I tell you what, he's that X factor though, Jason. Not really talking about Kaiser and all the things, the weapons that they have, but I think Nate Michael's a guy that you can grind out long, sustaining drives with if you're Southeastern, and take the ball out of Shea Spencer's hands a little bit, almost kind of Kaiser, if you would, of the balance of the run and pass balance and long, sustaining drives, shorten the game a little bit. I think if Southeastern, they'd love to win this game 17-14. Do you know what I mean? Like I could see that potentially happening. If they win this game, it's going to be that type of score, in my opinion. Just if it's possible to shorten the game, it's on Nate Michael's shoulders to keep the chains moving, sustain drives, find creative ways, run and pass, and use your legs when you have an opportunity. Nate, you take off and make plays, and play good run defense. They have a chance. Now, easier said than done because Kaiser's pretty darn good. Kaiser's still good. Kaiser, and that sounds eerily similar, or that formula for Southeastern to win the game is pretty much Kaiser's game plan each and every week. They play the game the right way. They're going to be physical. They run the football well. They got a great quarterback in Shea Spencer, as we all know. So this is going to be a tough challenge, yes. But if Southeastern has a chance, they do those two things, they have a shot. Yes.
Yeah.
I still wouldn't bet it, though.
I wouldn't bet it. I think Southeastern's got some big play capability.
Yes.
If they get one over the top, it could be a ball game. And then, like you say, if they grind it out, and they get that one big play over the top, that one big play around the end where somebody breaks loose, they're really going to have a shot. But Kaiser, I've watched them enough this year to know they still got that strong offensive line. They still got that strong defensive line. Their secondary plays really well. They've got a lot of weapons on offense, and they're being led by who I consider to be one of the top 5 leaders in NAIA football in Shea Spencer and what he does week in and week out for the Seahawks. So it's going to be an uphill battle, needless to say, for Southeastern. User comment, Rourke Law, Kaiser 7 conference championships in the past 7 years. SEU is the only team in the Sun Conference to beat Kaiser twice. So years ago, but
years ago.
I
mean, again, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I'm not saying that. I think things have to go. The sun has to be and the moon has to be aligned just right. And I'm not saying it's not possible. It is possible, but got to defend the run really well. And Nate Michael and that offense have to be tremendous for Southeastern to win this game. And they got to win a low scoring game. I think that's what has to happen.
100%. Moving on, we'll move on. We go to the Sooner Conference. Ottawa, Arizona going to Texas Wesleyan. And then in the Mid-South, you've got Bethel sitting at 4-3 going to Campbellsville. Let's start up top. Let's be honest. Like, Ottawa hasn't played anybody this year. Like they beat Louisiana Christian. Yes. So they got that win. But otherwise, like Ottawa's just been through their schedule. This is the first real challenge. Texas Wesleyan, even though they've got 3 losses, those losses are to an FCS and a couple really good Division threes. So I just feel like Texas Wesleyan has been battle tested a little bit more. So people from the outside looking in going, 7-0 is taking on 6-3, 7-0 team, they'll get this win. This is going to be a tough game for Ottawa to go into Fort Worth, Texas, and get a victory against Texas Wesleyan. I think they do. I'm going to pick Ottawa to win this game, but this is a conference championship game. And Pat, I just think it's going to be a battle. It's one I'm really looking forward to watching on Saturday.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I have not seen Texas Wesleyan in some time since the Lindsey Wilson game. So it's been a while. It's been a while
since week 0.
Yeah, it's been a while, and they've kind of disappointed a little bit since. I mean, so it's it's a couple. It's a D3 and it's an FCS loss, but they've not played what we kind of anticipated them to play, the way that we anticipated them to play this year. I really thought Texas Wesleyan, this was that next step for them to be like that upper echelon, top 6 to 8 teams in the nation. So I think there's talent on that roster. Certainly, we saw it last year, and like you said, battle tested. They've played really good teams, right? Obviously, and Ottawa, Arizona hasn't. Ottawa, Arizona's got to travel quite a bit. So I think this is a close game, and I really don't know how you would pick this game, because not really knowing kind of what we're dealing with here. To be honest with you, I'm looking forward to watching it and really evaluating these teams after watching this game. I feel a week from today, I can give you a better analysis of where these teams are. Yeah. Right now, I have no idea, to be honest with you. So I'm looking forward to that, truthfully.
Yeah, I kind of look at the conference and I say, all right, Langston usually has a team that can score some points, and you got to keep an eye out for Langston. Texas Wesleyan 44-36 win. They gave up a ton of passing yards, and Ottawa, Arizona likes to throw the ball. I kind of looked at that as a game to kind of measure this. Texas Wesleyan beat Louisiana Christian earlier this year, 61-28. So pardon me, I think I said earlier Texas Wesleyan still had to play Louisiana Christian. It's Ottawa still has to play Louisiana Christian. But I just look back at some of these games and I go, they're wins for Texas Wesleyan. But they got a lot in front of them this week, and I think Ottawa, Arizona ultimately gets the win. Gonna be interesting. Want to watch it. Want to learn more about these teams. Mid-South Conference, Bethel University at Campbellsville. It was a nice win over Georgetown, not an impressive win over Georgetown. This is a game that if Bethel can go to Campbellsville and get a victory from the Tigers, I will be very impressed now with this Bethel team and the way that they have grown this year. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Campbellsville's wake-up call against Cumberland University a couple weeks ago has shocked the Fighting Tigers back into, let's get focused, let's get ready, let's keep winning. We're a team that can make a run in the postseason. I think that that loss a couple weeks ago has them uber focused for Bethel University this week.
I totally agree with you. And it's funny. I think that first thing you said there, Jason, that could get clipped and reversed into like some type of hype video. Because you said if Bethel, I have to go back and watch that.
I'm going to be on a highlight video.
There's a part that could have gotten clipped there that you'd be uber impressed with Bethel University going to Campbellsville and beating the Tigers. Like that could get clipped.
Clip it.
Hype video. Clip it right
Clip
there.
It
was there.
Video.
I was paying attention closely. So, that can clip right there. So here's the thing.
I don't watch my words. Put me on any video you want. I love it.
Absolutely. So here's the thing. I think Campbellsville, I totally agree with you. I think that was a wake-up call 2 weeks ago. They came out, drove down to Montgomery, Alabama, and thumped Faulkner yesterday. I think this is week 2 of those 3 we talked about that are really that build to obviously solidify the conference championship and really get them ready for postseason, meaning Campbellsville. So I think Campbellsville's going to come out red hot and at home and play exceptionally well. Yes, Bethel feels good about their victory over Georgetown. They're very confident after that victory. This could be competitive for a while, but I fully anticipate Campbellsville taking control of this and playing very, very good football here late in the year.
No, I would agree with that. I think Campbellsville's had the wake up call. They're ready to go. Did have a user question about the other featured game. Would you say the winner of Ottawa, Arizona, and Texas Wesleyan will determine who would make the playoffs in the SAC conference? Yes. as long as they win the final week. So if Texas Wesleyan wins, they're obviously in the driver's seat because they're still undefeated in the Sooner Athletic Conference. They would then have to beat Wayland Baptist, who's 6-2 this year. Wayland Baptist has had themselves a nice little season so far. But the winner of this game will be undefeated in the Sooner Athletic Conference. They will get the automatic. So to answer the user question there. All right, we move on, Pat. Do you know who that is?
I have no clue.
That's Fetty Wap.
Okay.
You know any songs by Fetty Wap?
No. No.
No?
No.
Trap Queen. Trap Queen.
Oh, Trap Queen. Okay.
You didn't like the Star Wars reference last week, so I went musically. Fetty Wap. Trap Queen. We're talking trap games.
Yeah. Remember, I have the musical taste of a 75-year-old man. Just remember that. Just remember.
The only reason I know Fetty Wap Trap Queen is because I'm a big fan of the Kansas City Royals, and that was like the team's song in 2015 when they made the run to the World Series and all that. And they would always find ways to get like 1738 into their like post-game interviews and something like, yeah, he makes that play 17 out of 38 times. That's how I know Fetty Wap Trap Queen. Okay. And that's why we're talking trap games.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think these are the trap games, man. And I didn't put Benedict and Baker as one of the featured games of the week because not a rated matchup there. I think it's a trap for Benedictine. Baker fans might not like to hear that because Baker's thinking we're 5-0. We're in this conference. We're in the lead right now. We have more wins in our conference than Benedictine does. They're only 4-0. We're 5-0. I think it's a trap game for Benedictine. They're going to Baker. Things have been cruising right along for them. They got to be focused to be able to come into this as the number 3 team in the country to potentially, drop a game on the road that could really screw some things up. That's why I put that as a trap game, not as a featured game. But we have other games on here, these trap games that could be featured games, Pat. Any one of these stand out to you as, ooh, that one right there, that might be a trap. That could be a trap. 1738.
I mean, Cumberland, Tennessee just kind of been that trap team all year, though, right? Like, I love Lindsey Wilson. I think they're a dynamic team. Mm-hmm. But, like, Cumberland, Tennessee just did it to Campbellsville. That's the one that just kind of jumps at me maybe a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm with you. Like, Baker, they're probably feeling slighted right now, just like you said. But, like, Benedictine's top 3 team. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Baker was 0-4 to start the season. So, yeah, I mean, those two kind of jump out at me. I don't know if the other ones necessarily are, to be honest with you. But
yeah, I mean, I look at thing I look at with Mount Marty, they can throw the ball a lot. Yeah. And if we go back to Morningside's games, that they early in the season that played against Benedictine, Benedictine was able to throw the ball on them. So Mount Marty, a team that can air it out a little bit, could cause some problems. Granted, it's going to be in Sioux City. Mustangs just need to be careful. I don't know why I keep trotting Graceland out there as a team that could potentially get an upset. I mean, they're a talented bunch. They're a talented team. If William Penn, is riding high off the win over Peru State and maybe overlooking what Graceland's got coming at them, this could be a trap for William Penn. The fact it's at home, I think that helps them. And then, McPherson better not read the press clippings. They better not watch this show and us talking about them being in the postseason. And then they look at the score, obviously, of the Friends Kansas Wesleyan game and go, wow, they beat 63-6. Like, we're going to walk. K-Dub will be at K-Dub. And this has been a pretty good team this year. So that's why I say that could be a trap game right there. And then Concordia, who is rated, by the way. I don't have that on there. Concordia going to Dort. Dort's undefeated. Concordia's got 2 losses in the conference right now. Dort could be looking past them because guess what? Conference championship game potentially next week against Morningside. Mm-hmm. If they're looking too far ahead, this Concordia team is a good enough team that could knock them off. So I think we got some potential traps here coming this week. Any other thoughts, Pat, before we?
No, like you said, this
is going to wrap it up, baby.
Yeah, Concordia Dort. Yeah, I'm with you because, like you said, the Morningside game is looming the week after, and Concordia certainly has proven that they can play at that level, no question, and knock off a team like Dort. Again, Dort, snuck out one just yesterday, so people are teams have pushed them to the brink before. So, Concordia certainly has that ability. And Mount Marty, they knocked off Northwestern earlier in the year. So, I mean, anything's possible, certainly. And we're seeing more of that this year. And again, we've talked about, pretty much all these leagues to some level. It seems like there's more depth in general. I mean, really, when you think about it. So, yeah, I think anything's possible. And we're seeing it at all levels of football where it's hard to go undefeated. Like, we're talking about Dort. We're talking about, Benedictine. I mean, it's hard to go undefeated. They lost to Grandview, I guess, right? Yeah. Right. Yeah. Early. It's a long time ago. It's hard to go undefeated. Kaiser's got a challenge this weekend with Southeastern. It's hard to do that. So, we're seeing, more depth, more competitive games down the wire. It seems like there's games that surprise us each and every week that we weren't anticipating being marquee type games that are shuffled now into, our key games to talk about in our show. So, that's happened every week. It seems like, Jason, that we're on our radar that end up being on our radar.
Well, the thing I like about the last 3 weeks of the season that we just finished, the third week. We're now got 2 weeks left in the season before we have 1 week left in the regular season. We start with this view way back here, and now we're getting here where it's like, okay, all of these games mean something. There's postseason implications. There's seeding implications. There's a lot of things that can start happening. It's a lot tougher to figure that out week 3 unless it's just 2 top 25 teams playing. So that's why, some of these unrated teams, they've got a chance to potentially, make some noise, if you will, in the world of NAIA football. And with that said, Pat, that wraps up our regular talk about the world of NAIA football. We now go into the Blue Diamonds overtime segment. Anything that we missed, anything that we didn't talk about that we should have talked about before we go off the rails here for a couple minutes? Hour and 2 minutes just on straight NAIA football, Pat.
I know. I don't think we got to the features. We got to the features in 9 minutes too. So it's that's hard hitting on the feature games. We really got in-depth analysis today on NAIA football. Because everybody loves almonds, so thank you, Blue Diamond.
Yes, Blue Diamond almonds.
Almonds. Question for you:
Yes.
Has anyone talked about I have a really good story for the love of the NAIA. Do we have anything just really quick?
I don't. I didn't even check emails, and I might have had a DM on Twitter that I kind of forgot to go back.
Well, I've got a good one here because I turned on the St. Francis Olivet game yesterday. Yep. Obviously, I'm an alumni. I spent more than half my life at the University of St. Francis. And we've always had fun, we as in St. Francis, always had fun field stories, facility issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
We always have, again, talk about the NAIA, love the NAIA. We always have some type of facility issues. There was a delay yesterday in the Olivet St. Francis game yesterday. You know this, Jason? Did you hear about this?
No, I did not.
Stands came up on the turf field. So the crew there at St. Francis had to get Gorilla Glue or whatever. They had to go and basically glue down elements of the field. So it was a 25-minute delay. So I turned the game on at 1 o'clock because the game's not starting. What's going on? And, of course, the great Joe Parson, who's called every game, I think, in USF history, minus a couple medical situations. So explained there's a delay for the field. So I started reminiscing of years past. So back to 2003, Todd Sturdy's St. Ambrose team came to the University of St. Francis in round 1 of the playoffs. No, excuse me, this was round 2 of the playoffs.
Oh, so yep, because they beat Mid-American Nazarene, who was undefeated. They beat them on a tipped ball at the end of the play. John Booth throws it, gets tipped. They're saying pass interference. They're saying not pass interference. The ball ended up being tipped. Mike Cochran, very sad on the sideline. Yeah, I remember that game.
2003.
22 years ago.
That's crazy. You're just amazing. Anyway, so the Fighting Bees, the great St. Ambrose Fighting Bees with Todd Sturdy. I think Mike Magistrelli was DC back then. Mike's a good friend of mine. I think he was still on that staff. A lot of good guys.
Yep.
So anyway, they came to Fort Wayne for this round 2 football game. So this is back the year before St. Francis got a artificial turf field. Okay. So it's all the old grass field. For those that have ever or old enough to have ever been at the University of St. Francis, the Bishop Darcy field before turf, holy moly. So the program started in 98. We were just happy to have a field. We didn't care what it looked like. And believe me, that's what it was like. If just to put it in perspective, you're just happy to have a field. Well, that's what it was. So my father, just in his brain, there was some precipitation in the forecast in this late, I guess that'd been the last week of November, first week of December, maybe. No, last week of November.
That would have been the Thanksgiving game.
Yeah, Thanksgiving
game.
So there's precipitation in the forecast. It's right around that freezing mark. So back then, this grass field, we had like old baseball tarps, like infield tarps. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So the night before on Friday, they had the Friday walkthrough. I think St. Ambrose came walkthrough. They rolled out these tarps, Jason. So the entire field looks like the infield of a baseball field. Okay. So it's all covered. So literally, instead of rain, it started out as rain. The temperature dropped. It was about 4 inches of snow.
I remember hearing about this. Yes.
True story. So talk about the love of the NAIA. Okay. The next morning, oh no, it wasn't rain. It was snow. So like you're like scraping your car off, you're shoveling your driveway probably to get out a little bit. It's good 4 to 6 inches, probably in that range.
Mm-hmm.
It's covering this tarp. And you can imagine a tarp with 4 to 6 inches of snow, heavy, wet snow.
Yeah, you're not pulling it off.
You're not pulling it off. You're not just simply pulling this thing off and it just flakes off. No. So literally, we had to have, there's like so many people working the grounds crew at the University of St. Francis on a Saturday and Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
So the game gets delayed. The players with scissors and box cutters are out there cutting up this tarp thing, this giant tarp. The players end up being the grounds crew before this playoff game, pulling up this snow-covered tarp that weighs hundreds of pounds. I mean, it's insane, right? The players, and they're working their tails off. They're dripping sweat. It's the whole 9 yards. It's hard manual labor, and the Cougs proceeded to kick the crap out of the Fighting Bees that day too. So it's like it was kind of a joke. It's like St. Ambrose looking. I was like, "You guys serious? You guys are like the grounds crew, and we're gonna play a playoff game on this crap field." And yeah, the Cougs pulled it out. So it was.
I remember that. I remember that year well because the Mid-States Football Association Midwest had a 3-way tie for first. Ambrose was one of them. I'm trying to think who else was up for it then. I think St. Xavier possibly tied, and Olivet Nazarene. I think they were all 7-3 going into the postseason. Ambrose ended up winning the tiebreaker. There was a lot of like a 3-loss team. They don't even deserve to be in the postseason, blah, 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 all that. And then Mid-American Nazarene, who was 10-0, 11-0 at that time, and like rated number 4, maybe number 3 in the country. Everybody's thinking, hey, this could be a shot for Mid-American Nazarene to make a national championship. They go so far to have Metro Sports start doing a documentary. Metro Sports is like the big like regional production company. They're going to follow Mid-American Nazarene through the playoffs and have this documentary. Well, it ended up being on only one game because they lost to St. Ambrose. I have a copy of the documentary. It's actually very well put together. Lot like if you didn't know it was a first round NAIA football loss, like you would watch this thing and think it was a national championship that they put together. Like it was. Metro Sports did a tremendous job. I should see if I can find it and send it to you somewhere. It might be online somewhere. Hell, I should put it online at this point. I don't think Metro Sports exists anymore. What are they going to do? Copyright me on it? I don't think so.
So anyway, the Cougs won that game like, I don't know, 40-13, something like that. And then we got the great pleasure to fly out to Helena, Montana the next week and lose to Carroll College. But
yeah, not a lot of fun there.
Not a lot of fun there.
Hey, we did have a question. Playoff format same as last year with 4 games in the first round and 8 in the second. Yes, you are correct there. So seeds 13 through 20 will play in the first round. Everybody else has a bye. And then they will reseed off of that and then put together the second round, which will be Thanksgiving weekend. So that there is that. I believe we've got to all the questions here. If anybody else has a quick one, pop it in there. But otherwise, I think Pat and I need to wrap up. We're approaching that hour and 20-minute mark. The original idea of this podcast was to keep it always at an hour because I can't listen to a podcast that's longer than an hour. So, but at this point, we've gone well over that. It has to be a pretty good subject. And, we're pretty niche subject here.
Quite niche. It's quite niche.
Quite niche. But buddy, this has been fun, man. I go back to 3 years ago when we started doing this. Like, I think it was about this time that we started up 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. Go back and look at some of those videos when I was in the garage doing it. I was on the Wi-Fi. I was still growing my beard out. Just happy to be here, basically.
It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. And yes, you have a chubbier face and you're so svelte now. Thin. Look at you. Yeah,
working
we've come
on
a
it.
long way. It's been good, man. Been a lot of fun, and yeah, it was late in the season. I think 3 years ago. You're right. It was like towards kind of the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season, getting in the postseason. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and this is gonna be a fun run. And we talked about it off air a little bit. It's one of those things. It's like is it Grandview and Kaiser once again? I think the field is really interesting. I mean, you got 1, 2, then I think 3 through maybe 12, 14, 15, 16. There's a lot of parity this year. And I think the interesting things can happen, and there's a lot of different type teams out there that can make a run. So these last couple weeks are going to be really interesting. 3 weeks, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fun.
We'll probably start asking some questions about what people think, who's going to win, blah, 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 all that in the next couple of weeks. But I just look at the way the NAIA is shaping up right now for the postseason. And I really think it's going to be a lot more about seeding and home field than it is really about the quality of the teams, because the 20 teams that are going to get in there are going to be really good and can challenge. There's probably going to be 10 teams on the outside of that are going to be right at that verge that, in a different year you could plug and play and have the same sort of quality in the NAIA postseason. So I'm looking forward to it, man.
Could be a lot of fun.
I think we need to wrap it up. All right, everybody, don't forget, Top 25 comes out tomorrow morning. We'll have that. Chips Picks on Tuesday. The Around the Nation article comes out on Wednesday. We follow all the games all weekend long. Check us out on Twitter. You know where you found us here, so you know where the links are. Just if you haven't added us or followed us yet, do that part as well. All right. He's Pat Donley. I'm Jason Dannelly. This has been NAIA Football with Donley and Donley from the Victory Sports Network. Get on out there, enjoy some NAIA football, and have a great week, everybody. Later.